Sometimes lament looks like a shout. It's all passion and zealous action, like Jesus cleansing the temple of money changers. Other times, it's this quiet anger that stops business as usual and holds eye contact with a whole room. Like when Jesus asks religious leaders what serves God's purposes best, helping someone on the wrong day or not helping them at all. And sometimes lament is a sigh to heaven that speaks so much more than the sound escaping. In this season of preparation for Easter, I am inviting us all to lament like Christ, to notice and just maybe marvel a little bit at what moved Jesus to feel anger, frustration, compassion, grief, and some of those things sometimes all at once. And then may we use this season as a time to normalize all our own really unruly feelings, all the big emotions we experience because of our own laments that often go unnamed. We're taking a few weeks to say out loud that true Christ-like behavior doesn't hinge on good manners or a polite face. It just doesn't. We don't need to value nice over kind. Because sometimes the kindest, most compassionate stance we can take is to sigh or groan at the absolute mess the world has made of itself. And yes, agreeableness and pleasantness, they're great to practice when they apply. On every day they do, they are values. But they can't take the place of a few other honest faces that on other days become necessary. Because some realities call out something different in Jesus' people, something more discordant and confronting than pleasant and nice, some expression of friction and pain that we feel down deep in ourselves when we experience that gap between the world as it is and the world as God wants it to be. Again, today, just like last week, we're going to check in with the Gospel of Mark as we move with Jesus through the start of his ministry, past the early days, right into the heart of it. As Mark chapter 7 opens, Jesus tries to explain cleanliness to religious elites and then to his disciples, and he doesn't have a great time. In either case, Jesus seems really let down by both groups and how they take his words completely literally. He ends the day, I would say, worn out. Jesus is very, very tired of it all. He seems to need some downtime, maybe some me time, or just a time out briefly from the Pharisees and the disciples and the crowds that all keep pressing in, setting tests or traps, listening but not hearing him, asking questions Jesus thought he plainly answered. Jesus has been performing miracles, miraculous healings among the small Jewish communities in Galilee. And now for the first time, Jesus is going to travel all the way across that region to its edges, which is no longer Jewish territory. He goes to this Gentile area along the Mediterranean Sea, around the cities of Tyre and Sidon. To me, that's just another sign. The place that he goes and the lengths that he takes are a sign that Jesus is exhausted with life right now. He is literally running away for just a moment. During the chapter, Jesus goes into a house that he doesn't want anyone to know he's in. That is what the gospel says. But then he gets recognized by this foreign woman who needs his help, whom he tries to ignore and whom he even insults, who wears him down, and then whose daughter Jesus heals before the two of them part ways. We don't have time for her full story today, but ask me about it if you're curious, because this foreign Syro-Phoenician woman is one of my all-time favorite Jesus moments. So just after this challenge of a Gentile woman, Jesus is still trying to catch his breath. Jesus heads through the area called the Decapolis, where he is not well known. I mean, he's not really supposed to be known at all at this point. And Mark says, some people bring him a deaf man with a speech impediment, begging him to place his hands on him for healing. Okay, we aren't sure who some people are, but we're pretty sure that they, like the man, are outsiders, just like the woman earlier in the chapter. They're probably outside Jesus' culture, and this man in particular, he's even an outsider to his own culture because he's cut off from his community by his inability to communicate their way. They don't understand him. Jesus doesn't even pretend that he's not going to help. Right in this case, he takes the man aside. He doesn't cure him publicly or, in front of everyone, but off to the side with action and almost no words, Jesus heals the man's hearing. It's a near silent moment that tells us a lot. So I'm going to read to you from the Common English Bible, Mark 7. After leaving the region of Tyre, Jesus went through Sidon, through Galilee, through to the region of the 10 cities. Some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly speak, and they begged to him, place his hand on the man for healing. Jesus took him away from the crowd by himself, put his fingers in the man's ears. Then Jesus spat and touched the man's tongue. Looking to heaven, Jesus sighed deeply and said, "Ephphatha," which means open up. At once, his ears opened, his twisted tongue was released, and he began to speak clearly. Jesus gave the people strict orders not to tell anyone, but the more he tried to silence them, the more eagerly they shared the news. Okay, let's start with what happened, because some of it's a little subtle there. After we get the what down, we can maybe unpack how many different things Jesus might have been feeling and why it all matters. Jesus takes a deaf man aside from the people who brought him, touches his face. Jesus makes moves to heal him with spit and a second touch, evidently. But then Jesus sighs deeply while looking to heaven. A few other translations of that same verse say that Jesus groaned mightily to heaven. And that comes before Jesus says a word. The groan or the sigh, it's just dropped into the middle of a sentence, but really, I think it should get its own line because it's kind of a big deal. There's a really specific Greek word used for that action, and the word is rare in the New Testament. The English version of that Greek word is stenazo. It is only used once across all four gospel writers, just right here where it's used to apply to Jesus. Later, throughout Paul's letters, that a version of that same word, stenazo, will be used 4 different times to indicate some sigh or groan that a person feels or a group of people are feeling. Whenever it appears, it seems to link something human to something divine, something deeply felt on earth to some glimpse or purpose of heaven. So what does the word mean? In Greek, it is to sigh, to murmur, or to pray inaudibly and profoundly. It is both grief and groaning. It's a sound like the sound of a woman in labor, like anguish moving through a human body. Or it can mean a response to something so deeply felt, it no longer has words. A feeling deeply internal and basically inexpressible, finding a way to express itself. Some Bible commentaries call the sound that Jesus made the groan of compassion. I like that. I suspect, for my thinking, it's a lot more than that, but it's certainly a good start, the word compassion. I think that sigh, even more than the next word Jesus clearly speaks, is a direct link from earth's pain to heaven's power. I think it connects Jesus' many layered feelings to a God who understands them all, who is in it with Jesus, and who is moving on behalf of whatever Jesus feels. I really do think that one thing Jesus felt was the weight of a life stunted and held back, a weight of isolation. I think that part of the groan was Jesus suffering with this man. I also think Jesus felt the beauty of some people bringing him forward. This heart-touching act of hope and faith, or maybe even desperation, for these people to bring someone clearly in need to a ragged rabbi that's completely outside their own tradition. I also think Jesus probably felt the brutality of a society where this man was so othered, where there wasn't a way for him to participate. I mean, his body seems fine. It seems he's handy capable. And when Jesus releases his tongue, he speaks clearly, so his mind is fine too. It's just that he's so closed off from full community. I think Jesus had a moment of lament for the world as it is, full of promise and goodness, but also of disease and distance, of beauty and pain all mixed up. So Jesus speaks a word, ephphatha, open up, or literally translated, be opened now. Quick little side note, I always get curious when a word isn't translated into English in an English Bible. Like maybe our close enough version just wouldn't get the job done. Like maybe we have to hear some odd sounding syllables just to kind of sort of, get there in our minds. The Greek dictionary explanation of ephphatha says a physical or a spiritual opening. So maybe leaving the word in Greek means Jesus wanted both things for this man in this moment. However intended, the miracle happens. The man is restored. And the moment ends with Jesus telling all the ones gathered, say nothing, tell no one, and then Jesus being completely ignored. A funny thing about the Gospel of Mark, the more explicitly Jesus says, do not tell, the wider the gospel spreads, like as if it cannot be contained. So that's what happens in those few verses. There might still be more going on for Jesus if we just zoom out to a few verses more that come a little earlier in the chapter. Remember, I said that one of the reasons Jesus seemed worn out was a frustrating day with the Pharisees and his disciples. Okay, well, here's how that plays out, and this exchange might be more familiar to you. This is starting at Mark 7:1. The Pharisees and some legal experts from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus. They saw some of his disciples eating food with unclean hands. Upon returning from the marketplace, they wouldn't eat without first immersing themselves. They observed many other rules that have been handed down, such as the washing of cups, jugs, pans, and sleeping mats. So the Pharisees and the legal experts asked Jesus, why are your disciples not living according to the rules handed down by the elders, but instead eating food with ritually unclean hands? Ugh. I bet we all know somebody like that. I bet we all are aware of somebody whose first concern is always, but what way are you doing it? Did you do it the right way? Instead of, what got done. Jesus saw a whole set of people who thought like that, and he called them out for it. What a big show of saying the right thing, but your heart isn't in it, Jesus says. He calls them frauds in this passage. He quotes Isaiah to say, they just use God as a cover for teaching whatever suits their fancy. Oh, and about those rules handed down, Jesus says, clearly you are experts at rejecting God's commandment in order to establish these rules. Then Jesus called the crowd again and said, listen to me, all of you, and understand. Nothing outside of a person can enter and contaminate a person in God's sight. Rather, the things that come out of a person contaminate a person. After leaving that crowd, Jesus entered a house where his disciples asked him about that riddle. They said to him, what do you mean? And Jesus said, don't you understand either? Oh, Jesus, I definitely feel you in this one. How can the ones who hang out with you all the time also not get it? The Message Bible has Jesus say to his disciples, "Are you being willfully stupid?" I love that line. Feel free to use it, it's biblical. It's not the dirt you might chew and swallow that pollutes your life. Jesus had to explain to everyone on this day. It's the dirty ideas that you spit back out when you speak. What you're willing to say and entertain, the thoughts that you think, that's the real pollution of your souls. So, having to say that and still not have it understood is the episode that has Jesus tapping out for a little while, just tiptoeing into a different region, well into Gentile territory, away from his own. That's what has Jesus just avoiding his people for a little bit. And I think that he must still have been feeling these exchanges when he sighs to heaven. Because all of it must have still been in here. All the built up frustration, Jesus's natural human impatience with small-mindedness, his holy anger at religious fraud, his compassion and his melancholy both, sadness beyond the immediate grief must have gripped Jesus as he held one person's head in his hands and fully felt that one person's world of need. Something like a birthing pang might have moved through Jesus and expressed itself as a sigh that was also a groan. Because, some feelings are so big, they don't have words. Some things are so deep, words don't fully express them. And that's the kind of lament we've come to today. What hits you the way this series of events hits Jesus? What really just frustrates you, makes you mad, breaks your heart? If you can't say immediately, no problem at all. It's just something to think about. How many different layers of emotion does it take? What are the emotions that sit heaviest with you, that lodge inside and don't have a way out? What feelings build and build until you too need a groan to heaven to express what you're holding? Oh, God, can't you just fix this? Why? Why does it have to be this way? We are not meant to hold all the things that are wrong